Good morning and welcome to another segment of Preppers and Patriots. Today, I'm joined by Daniel of the channel Daniel, God is My Judge. How you doing this morning, Daniel?
Oh, I'm this side of the daisies, and I'm just trying to take care of business around here.
God is My Judge is the Hebrew interpretation of the word Daniel.
Yep. That's why I put it down there, and I put little things like that out there to see how long until people pick up on it.
Yeah, well, I probably wouldn't have picked up on it on my own until I saw somebody mention it in the chat. You know, I noticed, Daniel, from watching your videos and, you know, your channel, it seems like we're kind of on the same wavelength with a lot of our political views and our spiritual beliefs. And I see it's obviously clear by everything you're doing on there that you have a biblical worldview. Would you like to say something about that, or just talk about that briefly?
Oh, okay. About my faith?
Yeah.
And what's going on in the world? Okay. Well, I'm a Christian. I was baptized like when I was 6 years old, and when I hit junior high and found out about girls in sports, that's when I pretty much quit going to church with Grandma and just went out and just led the secular life. And God really, God's going to let you go out there and make your own mistakes because He doesn't want robots. And I made a lot of them. So right now, when a lot is forgiven, a lot's owed. And I've got to work. I've got to do a lot of work. It was when I got married, and it was pretty much just about, came down to it where we were going to end up in divorce. And it's like home one day, it's like, okay, we tried this counseling, done this and all this other stuff. And I had a brand new house built. It hadn't even been up 6 months. And I got home one day, looked at the blocks, and there's a big crack going down there. And just looking at that was like, my foundation's bad. And I wasn't talking about my house at the time. There's only one thing that's going to save it. Got to get the family and everybody back, get them in the church, and that's the only thing that's going to work.
Yeah, amen to that.
So that's a little bit of where I'm coming from on this. The channel, I just want to do it for video responses, or VRs. And, talk to people. That way they could see where I'm coming from, not necessarily wanting to get a channel going.
It just kind of grew organically out of that. I think that's good. As I said, I think, one thing that attracted me to your channel was that our faith and our spiritual beliefs, and our politics seem to line up pretty closely. I'm a Christian as well. I've only been saved for 5 years. I think it's so important to try to look at things through the doctrines of the Bible and through, God's Word and how He lays things out for us. And it is so perfect. And of course, there's the struggle, right? Because there's the old man in there pulling at that and wanting to move us in a different direction. And maybe, I think it's true for everybody, but you've obviously been in the faith a lot longer, so it may be a little different. Like for me, I'm relatively new. I still have that struggle, like the Apostle Paul said, daily. But if I have to be honest, I think for me it's probably hourly, right?
Every hour, every minute, every situation you're in. It's like, when you first come to God and stuff, it's like Apostle Paul said, hey, I'm just giving you milk. You need to be eating meat by now. Okay, just to let you know, as far as like where I'm at my faith and stuff, I'm eating cheeseburgers. I'm not down to the T-bone steak yet. It's every day. As long as you keep working at it, you keep gaining more knowledge, work on more love, more faith.
Yeah.
And it's just, you don't stop learning until you're dead.
If we look at anything that's overwhelming to us, and instantly prepping comes to mind, right? When we first wake up and we look at what needs to be done and what we need to do to get in order for prepping, it can be very overwhelming. And so that, eating the elephant, that one bite at a time, one thing at a time, every day, just do one little thing, do whatever you can. And that's really is the best approach. And I think that's true in our walk with Christ as well. And in our relationship with God. I mean, if it says in the Bible, God's word is a lamp under your feet. And I think that's, for me anyway, I'm not a Bible scholar, but I look at that and I read through that and I think because the lamp on your feet only illuminates a foot or two around your foot. It doesn't, if we had a giant spotlight in the tree and we could see the whole entire forest, we would see all the scary stuff out there and we would be crippled. We'd freeze or hide behind a rock for the rest of our life. Whereas God shows us that the light on our feet, we can see just enough to take the very next step. We can't see anything beyond that. And so then we do that. In obedience, we take that step, and then that brings us a little closer. Then we can see another couple feet. Then we can take the next step. And I think that can be related to many things. Again, prepping is one of them, or anything that can be overwhelming. Setting up a homestead. I look at the project I'm doing in Virginia, and I'm guilty of that. I'll sit back sometimes at night when I'm relaxing, and I'll look over the yard, and I'll look at the house, and I'll think, oh, manana me, I got all this stuff that's got to be done, and it is overwhelming, and you have to draw yourself back and take that same approach with, the lamp under your feet. Just say, nope, I'm not going to worry about all that. What have I got planned for tomorrow? What am I going to do tomorrow? And just try to move forward that way.
Yeah, it's like with faith and, my feelings and everything, and like peeling an onion. You go through there and you just start one layer at a time and a little bit at a time. And as you're going along, you see other things about yourself that you need to change. And just getting the Word of God helps give you power and strength to do it.
A lot of growth in that area really comes from the process of looking at ourselves. Looking at, I think so often we look at, focus on other people and what's wrong with the world and what's wrong with our neighbors and what's wrong with the people we work with and all this other stuff. When really, if we want to, in doing that, we just stagnate in that bitterness our whole entire lives. If we want to grow out of that and grow with Christ, we need to put our pride aside and look at ourselves in the mirror and say, no, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with what I'm doing? And then, as you said, one little thing at a time. Try to find one little thing and correct it, and then and that's growth, right? That's how we grow.
And if you sit down and knock all the stupidity off of it and just get down to the bare root of the problem, when you see or looking out for enemies and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find out that you are the enemy. I mean, a person is the worst enemy. Now you take a look at that as far as prepping. So many people, you give them ideas, and the first thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, I can't do that. I don't have this." You've got to look over things on how do you get around it? What do you have to do to get to your goal? Instead of thinking I can't do this because I don't have, say, enough land to put a garden out. All right, well, how do you make your land bigger? Obviously, you're not going to stretch your borders out.
You're right, though. I mean, people get caught up in that, I can't do this, I can't do that, or it's overwhelming. We have to stop looking at the problems and focus more on the solutions, because these little
things. What do I have to do?
Exactly. I mean, we're always going to have challenges that are going to pop up, but we try to, I'm kind of in a state of flux here. We're building out that homestead in Virginia, and we were supposed to put this house on the market last year, but it wasn't ready, and we had some delays and stuff, but it's definitely got to go on this summer. And I'm looking at my garden. I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to be moving in some point, possibly, I don't know how quickly it's going to sell or whatever, but there's a chance we could be moving in the middle of the summer. Do I want to plant out this garden? But I'm going to do the majority of it in buckets. It's just so that if I have to, I can pick them up and move them. Is that ideal? No, because I would like to have more space. I would like to do more things, but you work with what you got and you do what you can. And that's what we all have to try to focus on. I think, so if you live in an apartment or in a condo and all you have is a little, 4x6 terrace, then, just put out 1 or 2 tomato plants and maybe a pepper plant or.
Yeah, try something. If it works out great, the next year you'll know to multiply it. Now, like your new place, you're obviously not going to be able to put out huge gardens there, but what can you do now that'll have it more ready for you next year? I mean, you pick out your spot where you want to have your garden. All right, look at the soil. Does it need anything? Or can I put a big compost pile over here that's going to give me a lot of good fertilizer later? It's, just little things like that.
Progress with stuff like that. I want to do the Back to Eden garden. I'm having a hard time finding wood chips, people to drop wood chips, because we're so far, like off the beaten path that it's just not convenient for them. I am organic, and he does like ryegrasses and different stuff and to fertilize the ground, and so that's his whole. I mean that channel's pretty good. He's got a pretty he's feeding the living food web underneath the soil, and the grasses come up and act as solar panels, and they pull the carbon out of the air and turn it into liquid carbon, and the roots are aerating and loosening the soil, and so it's prep in a lot of ways, and it'll grow through the winter, and then you can just chop it and let it decay right into the earth. So I may start something like that. Another thing I'm doing down there is I'm building out my blackberry and my raspberry bushes. I've got a few up here, and I'm taking cuttings and tip plantings, and I'm bringing them down a little at a time and trying to get a few rows of those going, because it'll be a couple of years before you get fruit anyway, and they don't need daily attention. They can sit down there, and maybe next year when I get down there, the year after, whenever, they'll be ready. They'll be bearing fruit. So you're right. There is things, even though I can't do a garden down there, there is measures and steps I could take to prepare for that in the future.
I've seen that, how you're getting that, and you're getting that started, getting it going, and that's great. I mean, and heading, you've got, a 6-hour trip to go down there?
Yeah, 6.5.
From where you live?
Yeah.
6.5.
No, actually, it's 9.5. It's 650 miles, 9.5 hours to drive down there.
Oh.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know it'd be nicer if it was just a couple hours. I can go there for the weekend. I mean, you really have to have some time to commit to make that kind of trip, So that's
a whole day's work right there just to drive.
Yeah. And I have back issues too, so sitting in the car for that long is tough for me too. And you have back issues too. I'm sure you can relate to that. But
oh yeah.
It's the hard thing for me is, we're renovating the whole house and everything too, and so obviously that's a different level of priority than prepping the grounds. Although it's all important, the house has to be done first, and so I'm putting my efforts in there, and then I'll go out and I'll sit on the patio at night when I'm done, and I'll look out over where the garden is and where I'm doing the blackberries, and I'll look around the yard, and I'll just be seeing like the peach trees that need to be trimmed down and all this other stuff. I'm like, man, I'm itching to get out there, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm here for 4 days, or I'm here for 5 days.
Right.
I mean, I could spend all that time out there in that yard. And so I go from that to reel myself in this, to realize like last time, I think I spent a half a day out there doing the blackberries. And even then, there's a level of guilt, because I'm like, okay, I'm out here now. There's stuff inside that isn't getting done, and I know that's my priority. So it's trying to strike that balance and trying to, I find myself in that because my passion is the outside stuff. The inside stuff has to be done, but that's not my love. That's not my passion. So I'm working in there, and I'm looking outside, and I'm seeing all this other stuff, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm just dying to get out there. But I'm just gotta take it in stride, I guess.
Get outside and play in the dirt.
Yeah.
But you gotta keep Mama happy. Because if Mama ain't happy, you're not gonna be happy.
That's true. My wife is a blessing. She's a hard worker. I mean, she's truly the epitome of the Proverbs 31 woman. and I'm blessed to have her. And I mean, she's just great. But you're right. And really, I want to make her happy. I want her to be happy.
Yeah.
Not just for my own happiness, but just to be able to make her happy, because she works so hard and she's such an awesome person that she's on board with all this. And I have to be a story for a whole other time. I can do a whole hour show probably just on this, but we started looking for this place, and as is most cases in a marriage or whatever, you each have your different like things that you're looking for, or things that you want. And I mean, she didn't really at first want anything to do with this place, and she wanted a place that was more move-in ready, whereas this one, it was a decent deal because it was a nice yard and the outside was gorgeous, but the inside was, I mean, it just needed to be gutted. So we came full spectrum because we were looking at other places, well, for roughly maybe the same money or just a little bit more, and the houses were beautiful inside, but then they were on a quarter acre or half an acre. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we wanted a little more land. I wanted a little more land. Honestly, she would have been happy on a half an acre. And so she came around and she realized, this is what, would make me happy. And so she did. She came around, she looked around, we saw, and so now I'm trying to, as I design the inside, I'm trying to give her everything she wants. We're make her life easy and happier when we get down there. For instance, moving the washer and dryer up from the basement, and we kind of both wanted that anyway. But like things like that, setting up the house the way she wants it, because we have different ideas about that too. But I
and there's a lot of work.
It is. In the back of my mind, I said, well, you know what? She relented and saw my vision in this property, or I don't know if she saw it, but she just let me see it myself, and she went along with it. So now that I've got what I want outside and the grounds and stuff, I'm going to try to just do whatever she wants on the inside, because honestly, I really don't care that much about the inside. I mean, I have some things that I'd like, but I'm going to just kind of let her steer that, and that'll be kind of our happy medium, our common ground, so to speak.
Well, my last tour in the Navy, we had, previously we'd lived on base and stuff and rented, but we got there and we found out it's like, no, we're just going to buy a house down here. That way we can have our own rules. Well, this is the south side of D.C., where I was, and, the south side of the Beltway. And it was going around looking at homes. Wife would come out on weekends, and we'd be looking around. We found some place that was in our price range, but it needed a lot of work. We ended up, the original price they wanted for it was like $150,000, which was no, not going to happen. I ended up getting, wasn't able to sell it either because the people that lived there had let it go for years, and it needed work. So we got it around was it 86 or 96,000. So got the loan for it. We put $15,000 into it, and a lot of our own labor. And I ended up with tennis elbow in both my arms. Chipping, knocking walls out, and all that stuff. I didn't get as intense as you're getting, but her dad would come down and we'd eat pizza out on the back porch, and I had to gut that thing too. But it was mostly time. But 3 years later, we turned around and sold the place for $260,000. All the work was done, and we put $15,000 into it.
That's phenomenal.
So, but we worked together on it, and she had all of her space that she wanted, and she is one person that loves to go outside. She grew up in the suburbs, so the lawn's got to be perfect. And that lawn was just as bad as the house. Huh. But I met my neighbors, and they seen all the work that was going on there, and boy, they were a lot of people getting friendly fast because they seen, hey, this place isn't a dump no more, and it's getting fixed up.
Yeah, they appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But we even found we had a light post out in the front yard that we didn't even know we had because there was just so much stuff growing up around it.
Wow.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. But right there, she was really happy in that place. But, the last tour, and we're going to go home. So where I have my house now, when we had first got married, it was no way I'm ever going to live up on, that mountain where we're at. And she grew up in town.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, it's like, all right, let's start looking where we're going to put our place. Boom, it's here. So all the work and the effort that I put into, to have her happy and where I'm at and where we're at now. I mean, it's really nice to be able to open your window in the morning and stick your gun out and take a shot and not have the SWAT team arrive.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah,
sounds really nice. I know you were explaining to me a little bit about, where you are, and it really does sound nice. Now, just touch on that a bit, because that was part of a family farm.
Yeah, we're out here on the family farm, the only family that's living on the farm right now. And the thing I wanted most of all was have good water. So, and the road we live on, the old name of it is Honey Creek. So if that gives you any inclination as far as how the water goes, I'll tell you, back in the day, this is where all the moonshine stills were because of the availability for beautiful, really artesian wells.
Wow.
And the size of them that they just flow through here and come out. So, I mean, no staining, and you can go right to the spring and drink the water and not have to worry about getting sick at all. Yeah, I'm surrounded by Amish, too. They love this area.
Yeah, they're good neighbors. Good neighbors to have. Yeah. So, and I know, so you were saying, over the years, they previous generations or whatever had started renting out some of the fields and some of this stuff, and so and I think you touched on that in one of your videos too, not your situation specifically, but the the demise of the family farm, the demise of the small farm, and how through the overreaching government control, they're trying to through excessive taxation and these other things that you're seeing a lot of these farms just get sold off and the land gets developed. And I think if we look at the nation as a whole and we look at, the problem of, food shortages or maybe not even shortages, but just the quality of the food that's available in the stores and the value in growing our own food and having our own little farms. And I think if we look back maybe 2 generations, 3 generations, most people did grow a lot of their own food. They had some garden, whether it was big, small, whatever, anywhere from somebody who had a garden and a couple chickens all the way up to somebody who had a farm and all kinds of animals and all kinds of things growing. And I think it's devastating that we're getting away from that, Daniel. If you want to just touch base on that, I know you did a much better job explaining it than I could on your video and one of the videos that you did, and I thought that was very thought-provoking.
I went back and did research all the way back to the founding of this country and all the way back to Roanoke, one of the first colonies that was out here. They had so much food they brought over on the ships with them. They got here to this country in the wrong time of the year, and they had to send the ships back to Europe to bring back more supplies because their supplies were going to run out. By the time they got back here, everyone was gone. They totally disappeared. Don't know if they were all killed, absorbed by the Indians, but boom, gone. Just lost to history. Now, once they figured out, it's like, okay, they tried it again. You know how the Thanksgiving story and everything, how the Indians got them through the first year. But once they got established in this country all the way up through into the 1800s, 9 out of 10 people lived on farms. And that's what, today what we call homesteads.
Yeah.
So for every 9 people out there on the homestead, you had 1 person that lived in town. And they would have to have some type of skill that would, supplement, the farmers and the homesteads. Or the homestead that wouldn't bother going in there. doctors, whatever kind of dry goods for cloth and stuff, things like that. But now, throughout the generations, and yes, you have the loss of the small family farms. Today, from listening to mama homesteaders, if you look at some more info, less than 1% are farmers that are actually producing food for America now. So it's completely flip-flopped. Yeah. And during my research in 2013, 94% of all corn, soybeans, and wheat, all your grain-type crops, were GMO, the genetic modified organism. Now, that's good for one crop. Now you take the seeds from it. Can you replant them? No, they're not. They might sprout and grow some, but they're not going to give you any new seed, basically food. It's going to be gone.
So it's not self-sustainable.
And that's going over
it's not sustainable in any way.
No, not at all. So what happens, every time man goes in and alters what God has made, has it been for the better in the long run? No.
Usually not. Oh.
So what happens if a blight comes in? I mean, there's a lot of what-ifs in the world. One thing is if a blight comes in and takes out all that seed, we'll only have maybe 6% of organic seeds still out there somewhere. It isn't going to be enough to feed the country. But here's the one thing that's been done in the past. You get so many corporations, and it ends up going to, very few corporations having control of the seed, which is the food that feeds everybody. And they're going to be able to name their price, whether they have a lot of things, commodities to sell or not. Or if they think, okay, we don't have to grow this much, we can pay people less to grow less, and we can keep the price up.
Yeah.
So we can improve our profit margin. So they're going to have control of all of our food.
That's really what it's all about for a lot of these big companies, and for, the government, I'm sure, has their hand in the control of all this as well, and the manipulation of it, as they do with most markets. But, so we come back to prepping, and we can prepare, and even in the Bible we see examples of, Joseph storing up the corn and for the
wheat
bad
and all that
coming, and like Noah building an ark, there were incidences in the Bible of people that prepared for things that they foresaw coming, and I think we could be in that. A lot of people are in that situation now, but even so, even with the prepper mindset, I mean, you can store up barns and barns of food. Eventually, that stuff is going to be diminished. So if we're plunged into an event or a post-event that lasts for a prolonged period, then we're all, okay, so like you say, you want to have 6 months food, you said in one of your videos, for your family of 4. And so you can get an idea intelligently of what that entails. You can plan for it, you can prep for it, you can put it away. Well, what happens if the post-event lasts 3 years, that period lasts 3 years. So the skills are very important. I think the skills, and this is where the homesteaders come in, when you're looking at the difference or the contrast between homesteaders and preppers, where the homesteaders are concentrating more on the skills. They're learning how to grow the food, how to nurture and take care of the animals, so they can have a smaller store built up. They can, if they have the 6 months built up, that gets them through, one gardening season or whatever, and then they can sustain themselves through the skills and through the knowledge that they have. And I think that's so important.
That's what's important. Even if it's just a small garden you're putting out, you're developing your skill, you're developing your knowledge. You're going to be wasting less. And not only less of your money, but less of your time. So when you do need, say, if something happened where the food supply is cut off, you first of all, make sure you got enough to get you through not just the winter, but the planting season. But you come through for the next planting season and something happened. Well, you're going to have the skill and the knowledge to where you can expand what you have to be able to support more than just your family, whether it's just for income or if you got relatives and friends that move in.
Yep.
That's the whole thing about gaining the knowledge. Now, our grandparents, they grew up, they were born during the Depression. They were little kids then. So they were going from hand to mouth, raising their food and not wasting. And they learned all these skills to get the most out of everything.
Sure.
Whether it's butchering a cow, pig, and to use everything there that they had. Now, what's happened here, with the 60s and the whole sexual revolution and women's rights, okay, don't, all the gals out there, just follow me on this, don't kill me yet. But what had happened there is, like my parents in the 60s, they both had jobs, full-time jobs. But before that, you always had at least the mom that was in the home was going out taking care of the garden, taking care of the home and the kids. Well, the 60s came along. Both parents are now out of the house. They're working, just like mine were. And who's really teaching the kids while the parents are away? They're just left to their own devices.
Yep.
And you go out there and get with the neighbors. And I was a child of the 80s in my teens, but before, like that, I was just, out running amok. And so you lost a little bit as far as the teaching of the youth right there. And it goes also back as passing on the knowledge on as far as how to can, how to cook,
and
how to take care
of yourself. A lot of that, I think, was from, the conditions of the economic system that we were in kind of forced a lot of people down that road. And I think you kind of see the cycles. Like, so in the 50s, you had that. The guy went off to work, and he made a living, and the mother stayed home, and she did the most important job in the world, which was, raise the kids and take care of the house. And so we had that. Then in the 60s with the sexual revolution, you're right, that spurned it. And so then the other side of that coin is like we started to have that desire to have everything we wanted instantly. We could no longer
gratification.
We're no longer willing to put a few pennies in the jar every week and wait 9 months or a year to go out and buy that new thingamabob that we want.
That's when all credit started.
Yeah, so once we mushroomed that, and once that credit got to a point where we couldn't sustain that anymore, and then inflation at the same time growing, and so now the economic conditions are changing. So now, at that point in the 70s, we needed, late 60s, early 70s, we needed both the man and the woman out there working. And sometimes, and I know this is the way it was in my house, my mom was a nurse. She worked part-time. And she worked evenings when my dad was home. And so he worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. She worked part-time. And so we were, middle class. And
right.
And so then after that, that just kept growing and growing. The debt kept growing. The inflation kept growing, and it's not enough. Now you see, multiple jobs. And so, but you're right, in all that, the family dynamic kind of got sacrificed, because when that economic need caused that, the spouse, the wife, to go out and have a full-time job, the kids were left alone a lot more, or left to their own devices, so to speak. And like you said, I mean, we were growing up as kids. Yeah. That wasn't good. That led to a lot of crazy stuff on our part.
Oh, and a lot of trips to the ER.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, and so I think overall, it's just we've seen the family unit kind of degrade, and of course now, I mean, we're now in the 2017. I mean, oh man, it's like that's completely different dynamics now. Like now you have all this other crazy stuff going in, and of course, we can look back and we can see that, that Supreme Court decision that, they enforced the law to take the Bibles out of the schools. I want to say 63, 64, right? Somewhere in there. That was the start of it, because now we're going to educate a generation of children without the benefit of the knowledge of God. And
right.
so,
They're removing God from everything.
yeah.
See, like with our financial situation, with going into the 90s up until now, with the availability of credit, multiple cards, people are spending more than the money they haven't made yet.
Yeah.
So now they are literally slaves to the dollar. Because if you don't pay your credit card bills, your house payments, and everything else, it's all going to be taken away. So you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. So now the job is more important than the family. Because you got to have the job to take care of the family. But you're looking at, I got to pay off this other stuff before I give any money here to the family. Now, with them taking the Bible out of the schools, what does the Bible teach us? Don't be a borrower or a lender.
You become a slave, because otherwise you're a slave to the debt.
And you cannot serve both God and money. You're going to end up loving one and hating the other. So we're getting put in that situation. They've taken God out of schools. They're taking God out of the governments. The Ten Commandments out of the courthouses. Our country was built and established under Judeo-Christian values.
Absolutely. Read through the Mayflower Compact, Google it, and look at that. It should be clear right there that this nation was formed, with those values in mind.
All the way up through the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Federalist Letters.
It all comes down to our relationship with Christ, and that kind of makes us who we are. And if we look at things through the doctrines of the Bible and with a biblical worldview, we will hopefully make the right decisions for our lives and to teach our kids. I know you're involved with a youth group, and so kudos to you for that too, because that's a very, very heavy responsibility. And kudos to all the parents out there that homeschool their kids, because that's also a very heavy responsibility. But in doing that, we can possibly build the next generation to be people that think for themselves and have their own values, and are not just automatons of this huge, grossly broken, overreaching system that is indoctrinating their political policies on. These kids are coming out of liberal colleges and they're entering the teaching profession, and so what are they teaching the kids? It's a full cycle. So, okay, if we trace it back to the 60s when the Bibles got pulled out and things started changing, now what are we, at least 2 generations into that, and it's not going to get any better. It's only going to continue to get worse.
Now, I've prayed about it, and I've been thinking, it's like, as far as my passion, where does it lie? Does it lie in guns and shooting? No, I like guns and shooting, but is it, I'm not ate up with it. It's not an idol. Mm-hmm. Prepping and preparing. Well, that's just a thing I do. Is it my passion? No, it's a thing that I do. Well, what am I passionate about? God, what's going on with our country, the destruction of the families, and I'm going to lose probably what few subscribers I got, because my channel is going to go that way. It's going to be political. It's going to be faith, God-based.
Amen.
I'm going to take a look at what's going on. I'm going to take a look at what's going on in this country, and then just read right out of the Bible and just try to keep it maybe 5 to 8 minutes. Something just a little short and sweet, and this is what it says, and this is how it affects my life and what's going on in the world.
Yep. And you know what, Daniel? I think God will bless that.
Because that's where my passion lies, period. God, my family, and, the countries after that. But no, well, when I say God, it's the brothers and sisters out there, and also fulfilling what God says to do. Spread the word of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And it's just, if there's just one subscriber that I have, and that's it, and that helps maybe get them thinking about Jesus, even just taking one little step towards him, it was all worth it then.
Yep.
Because as far as, oh, thanks. Because as far as, I am no preacher. I'm just a brother. And a lot of times I can just be stupid. So, and I admit it, and I'll make fun of myself all day long.
we all have the ability to be knuckleheads at times. I think it's in our nature.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up, Daniel. Again,
Correct, yeah.
I would like to definitely get together and do another segment at some point. I think we have so much to talk about. We could probably do a whole series. But it was good talking to you. I thank you for coming on, Daniel, for being a part of this with me, and appreciate your input and your perspective, brother. And, I salute everything you're doing there, and I wish you the best.
Well, thank you, Tim, and I appreciate the support that you've given me. And, it's like you and old Bizza and old Joe Primal out there that got me to even thinking about doing videos. I'll just see where God takes this, and, I'll follow him there.
Amen. We'll work together to spread the word, brother.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good day to you, sir.
All right. To you too.
All right. That was another episode of Preppers and Patriots. Thank you all for listening. God bless you.